I'm Mefazela Tabasum, an intern at the Center for Public Health and Technology. Today, I will guide you through the process of applying for research grants and writing effective research grant proposals, specifically for undergraduates engaged in public health research. The goal of this presentation is to break down the process of grant writing. I want to show you that crafting a compelling proposal and securing funding might be more straightforward than you think. Before we dive into the details, I want to point you to some helpful resources available on the Honors College website. This site offers a wealth of tips and general advice for writing a proposal. So before you start drafting your own proposal, it's important to thoroughly review all guidelines and requirements to ensure that you're on the right track. Additionally, I recommend watching the proposal workshop video by Dr. Chelsea Hodge, who is the Director of Grant and Research Innovations at the University of Arkansas. While these resources offer general advice, the focus of my presentation is to guide you through crafting a proposal specifically for public health research in the Health Equity and Addictions Lab and any other labs that may use similar research methods. When applying for an Honors College research grant or a SURF grant, there are several components that go into your application. One of these is a student resume. It's crucial to have a resume that effectively showcases your academic achievements and extracurricular involvement. If you need assistance with editing or drafting your resume, I highly recommend reaching out to the Student Success Center. They have professionals who are more than willing to help you refine your resume and ensure that it presents your qualifications in the best light. Next is your mentor's CV, which you will simply just ask your mentor for. You also need a current transcript. Sometimes you can submit an unofficial transcript, which you can just download off of UA Connect. However, sometimes they may ask you for an official transcript, which you have to order off of the university's website. There's also a budget agreement, which needs to be signed by both you and your mentor. You also need letters of recommendations from faculty. Your mentor will be one of these writers, and depending on the cycle you apply, will determine how many other additional letters you may need. Finally, there's your actual research proposal. So the description of your research, essentially your main proposal, is supposed to be a maximum of 5 pages double-spaced. This does not include the page for your references/citations. You also have to have an additional 1-page summary. This can be single or double-spaced. Before we get into the specifics of writing a solid research proposal, I want to briefly discuss the key pillars that are essential for creating a strong proposal. The first is context. Your proposal should reflect your familiarity and comfort with your field. It's crucial to show that you understand the current state of research on your topic and can place your project within that context. The second is relevance. So explain why your research matters. Make sure to articulate why your research is interesting, original, and significant to your field or to broader societal concerns. The third is approach. So outline your methodology. This is where you demonstrate that you've carefully thought about the data, tools, and procedures you'll use to conduct your research. It shows that you have a clear plan for achieving your research objectives. And the final one is feasibility. This pillar cannot be stressed enough. Your proposal must prove that your project is feasible within the given timeline and with the resources available to you. So you want to ensure that you've considered any challenges and how you plan to overcome them. As we go through the proposal writing process, you'll see how these pillars play a role in different sections. They are the foundation for a compelling proposal. I like to divide the proposal planning and writing process into 3 main phases. So here's a brief overview of each phase, and then I'll explain what they entail in detail. The first phase involves gaining familiarity with grant writing in your field and gathering sources and brainstorming. The second phase involves outlining and writing your proposal sections, and the final phase involves reviewing and revising your proposal. So let's start with phase 1, gaining familiarity with grant writing in your field. The best way to do this is by reading a few accepted student proposals. You can obtain these from your mentor in the Honors College website, which has an archive of previously accepted proposals. It's most beneficial to look at proposals from your specific field. When reviewing these, approach them with an open mind, paying close attention to the structure, tone, and language being used. This will give you a sense of what a successful proposal looks like in your area of study. Another critical component of phase 1 is gathering sources, brainstorming, and taking brief notes of things that you might include in your proposal. This involves researching background information to gain familiarity with your research topic. Here are some key steps to follow. First, read credible sources. Look for peer-reviewed journals, academic papers, and reputable publications related to your field. These sources will help you understand the current landscape and identify trends in your area of study. Second, you should gain comfort with your topic. Use the information you gather to show that you are knowledgeable about your research subject. This is crucial for establishing credibility in your proposal. You should also compare previous studies with your research. So as you review the literature, consider how your research aligns with or diverges from previous studies. This comparison will help you identify gaps in existing knowledge and justify the relevance of your work. You should also identify real-world applications. So explore how your research could be applied in real-life scenarios. Demonstrating the practical impact of your work can make your proposal more compelling to grant reviewers. Let's move on to phase 2, which involves outlining and writing the proposal sections. The specific names and arrangement of these sections can vary depending on your discipline or project. You might also choose to include additional sections to suit your project's unique needs. However, a common structure that has worked well for me and other students include these core sections: the introduction, objectives, methods, and significance. I'll break down what each of these sections should contain. So let's begin by talking about the introduction/background. Remember the pillars that I discussed at the beginning of the presentation. One of the pillars was the context. The introduction should set the stage for your research. So it should provide a clear and engaging context to help the reader understand why your research topic or question is important. The introduction is also the building blocks of your research proposal. In this section, you will explain the foundational concepts that underpin your research topic. This could include key theories, relevant background information, or notable studies in the field. You should also clearly define any uncommon terminology required to understand your project. You also need to use credible sources to establish credibility and demonstrate your familiarity with the topic. All this will help you build a strong case for why your research matters. Another section to include in your proposal is the objectives section. This part is crucial because it addresses the relevance pillar, which is all about demonstrating why your research is necessary and impactful. Here are the key elements to cover in this section. You should start by highlighting what is currently known from existing literature and identify gaps that require further investigation. This helps frame the problem your research aims to address. You should also describe what makes your research unique, so explain how your project contributes something new or provides a fresh perspective on the topic. You should also clearly outline what you intend to achieve with your research, so define specific goals or objectives, such as what you plan to measure, study, or test. Then there's also real-world application. So consider how your research findings could be applied in real-world scenarios. So discuss potential benefits and impacts, demonstrating that your work could have a broader significance. Now let's talk about the methods section, which forms the core of your research proposal. This section should address the pillars of approach and feasibility, explaining your research design, procedures, and any practical considerations. Here's what to cover. So for your research design, you will describe your research approach. Will you use qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods? You'll also define the type of study. Is it descriptive, correlational, or experimental? You'll indicate whether you will collect original data or use primary/secondary sources. For your research procedures, you'll clearly outline the specific procedures you'll use. What tools and techniques will you employ? Who are your participants or sources? You'll explain where, when, and how you will collect, select, and analyze data, and you have to provide sufficient detail to demonstrate that you have a solid plan. There's also practical considerations, so you'll address any potential obstacles or challenges you might face. This could include logistical issues, or resource restraints, or ethical concerns. And you have to describe how you plan to mitigate or overcome these challenges to ensure the feasibility of your research. The methods section is where you need to convince the reviewers that your approach is sound and that your project is achievable within the proposed timeline and budget. Next, I'll describe some of the more common research designs employed in public health, highlighting the key features of each of them. The first is qualitative. This approach involves non-numerical data focusing on subjective experiences and the complexities of human behavior. Qualitative methods can include interviews, focus groups, and content analysis, allowing you to explore in-depth insights and themes. Then there's quantitative, and quantitative research relies on numerical data that can be measured and analyzed statistically. This approach is often used to identify health trends, measure outcomes, or test hypotheses. Methods can include surveys, experiments, and observational studies. Then there's mixed methods, and mixed methods combine both qualitative and quantitative approaches to offer a more comprehensive understanding of the research question. This approach leverages the strengths of both qualitative and quantitative data, with each set of findings informing the other. It is particularly useful when you want to explore complex issues from multiple different angles. Now let's discuss research procedures. So how will you collect the data for your study? This is a critical aspect of the methods section, providing the details on the instruments, measures, sample size, and analysis methods you'll use. For your instruments, you'll define the tools and techniques for data collection. So examples include things like online surveys, structured interviews, and data scraped from social media platforms like TikTok or Reddit. You'll specify which instruments you'll use and why they're suitable for your research. Then there's measures. So you'll describe the variables you'll measure. Examples can include things like demographic variables, frequency of e-cigarette use, public sentiment, or other relevant factors. Then you also have your sample size and selection. So you'll state the expected sample size and how you will determine it. You'll explain any specific criteria used to determine participant eligibility if your study involves human subjects. You'll also discuss how you will recruit participants and ensure a diverse and representative sample. Then there's the data analysis aspect. So you'll describe how you will analyze the data that has been collected. So qualitative analysis might involve thematic analysis, where you identify common themes or patterns in the data. Quantitative analysis can include statistical models like logistic regressions or calculating odds ratios. You'll mention any software or tools you plan to use for analysis, such as NVivo for qualitative coding, Excel for basic data manipulation, or M+ for advanced statistical modeling. Your mentor will be a valuable resource in helping you determine what instruments will be used for your project. By providing clear information on your research procedures, you demonstrate that you've thought through the practical aspects of your project and have a plan for collecting and analyzing data. This level of detail reassures reviewers that your approach is both rigorous and feasible. In the methods section, it's also important to address other practical considerations that might impact your research. This helps reviewers understand that you've thought through potential challenges and have plans to manage them. So here's what you'll cover. So for obstacles and limitations, you'll want to identify any potential obstacles you might face during the research process. This could include things like recruitment challenges, data quality issues, or limited access to certain populations or resources. Then you'll explain how you plan to address these obstacles, such as adjusting recruitment strategies, ensuring data quality through robust procedures, or collaborating with other researchers or institutions. Then there's ethical and practical issues. If your research involves human subjects, you'll explain whether you will need approval or already have approval from institutional review boards or ethics committees. You'll outline any ethical considerations and how you will ensure participant safety and confidentiality. There's also the social behavioral research course and certification. So many public health research labs will require you to complete city certification for conducting social and behavioral research. This certification demonstrates your understanding of ethical research practices and ensures compliance with institutional requirements. If you have this certification, mentioning it in your proposal will help reviewers know that you understand basic research ethics and have the knowledge to conduct your research ethically. Once you're done with the methods section, you might choose to include a significance section. This part of the proposal addresses the relevance pillar, highlighting the importance of your project and its broader implications. So here's what to focus on in this section. You'll re-emphasize the importance of the project, so you'll explain why this problem or research question needs to be examined or solved. What makes it crucial for your field, for public health, or society at large? You'll also highlight real-world applications, so re-emphasize the practical applications of your research. So how can your findings be used in real-world settings? Will they influence policy, inform public health strategies, or contribute to social change? Then for your proposal, you also need to include a timeline. The timeline addresses the feasibility pillar. So it's essentially a month-to-month breakdown of the tasks that you will accomplish each month to ensure completion. This is best done through the use of a table, and I will show you an example on the next slide. Here's an example of a Gantt chart, which is a common format for visualizing project timelines. The first column on the table is titled Tasks, listing all the different activities that were required for one of my projects. The other columns represent each month in the funding period. To indicate when I would accomplish each task, I shaded in the appropriate boxes under the relevant months. So Gantt charts are very useful for visually representing your project timeline. If you're looking for more examples or templates, you can search online for Gantt chart to find resources and tutorials. Finally, I have a couple of tips for references and citations. Proper citation is crucial in a research proposal to ensure you're giving credit to the right sources and maintaining academic integrity. Here's what you need to know. Throughout your proposal, you should use superscripts to indicate where a source is cited. This is a common practice in research proposal and helps keep your text clean and readable. You should also follow a consistent order. The first citation that appears in your proposal should also be the first item on your reference list, followed by the second, third, and so on. Make sure to cite all images and figures, even if they are your own or provided by your mentor. If you use any external images, diagrams, or graphics, always give proper credit to the source. Following these tips will ensure that your proposal meets academic standards and avoids any issues with plagiarism or improper citation. And I will show you an example of what it looks like to cite throughout your proposal and in your reference list. So here's an example of citations and the reference list. So the first citation that appeared in my proposal was indicated by the superscript number 1, and that serves as my in-text citation. And that was officially cited in my reference list as number 1 as well. Similarly, the fourth in-text citation in my introduction is also properly cited as number 4 on my reference page. Then finally, you have your project summary, and this has to be 1 page. It can be either single or double spaced, however. It will basically have a summary of each of the sections in your proposal, so you'll summarize the introduction, objectives, and methods section, and I'll show you an example of what this needs to look like. Here's an example of a project summary. The heading of your project summary in this format should include the title of your project, your name, your mentor's name, your institution, your classification, your area of study, and your GPA. Then you'll also have a summary of each of the different sections of your proposal here. And then the final phase is to review and revise your research grant proposal. So review alongside the requirements and guidelines posted on the Honors College website to ensure that everything is included. You should also ask your mentor to review your proposal and edit as necessary. Finally, you should set up a meeting with Dr. Chelsea Hodge to review your proposal before submission. The last thing I want to touch on is letters of recommendation. So depending on the cycle you apply, you will need 2 or 3 total letters, and your mentor will be one of these letter writers. Let your faculty letter writers know the purpose of your project. They are not only supporting you, but they are also supporting your research. So if your mentor allows it, you can also share your proposal with your letter writers so they know what your research is all about, and you can also share a copy of your academic resume with them. And that includes the end of this presentation. I hope this made the process for applying for undergraduate research grants a lot more straightforward and feasible for you, and best of luck with everything.